Michael, first of all, let's just briefly look back at the weekend. You could have pushed back at me at Charlton if we were talking about end of season feeling about a game, but probably frustrated that you wouldn't be able to do that in that game because it had that feel about it.
Yeah, I think sometimes games have a story that is difficult. So we go 1-0 up and you think that it's going to probably be an easier day than actually is in the office. I don't think it's a case of... I think the feel of the sun and lots of people had the feeling of more of a pre-season game because of the weather, but I just think we took our foot off the gas in it as a performance thing. Not necessarily that the lads are still training hard, they're still trying to win the game. When we reviewed the game, we looked at the stats. We did enough to win the game. We had enough chances to win the game. Sometimes when you make a few changes, which I'm doing at the minute, everybody knows, and a few rotations, it disjoints things a little bit. But that's part of my job at the minute, is to look to the future. But I think if we play that game again, we win the game. Little bits in there, but I think everyone was coming with the view that it would be really easy, and that's probably where once you get they score, all of a sudden it becomes a different game then for something to hold on to, and that's what they did. So we're disappointed not to get the 3 points. We're disappointed not to win the game, but there's still stuff that we can move forward on.
Can I ask you about one of the players involved with the run in the FA Youth Cup, Isaac Allen? There's been some stories that he's up at Sunderland. What can you say about that?
Yeah, we're just looking at different options for Isaac, because we've got to make decisions on Isaac here, not here, and what we think the best for him is, whether playing or going somewhere else to play. So I think we're just trying to support Isaac in his next stage, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else, along with a lot of the young players in the building. First and foremost, we want them to have a career in the game, and we want to help that. And whether that's at Lincoln or whether that's outside of Lincoln, it's really important that we support him in what we're doing.
Let's go to the other end of the scale in terms of age, Sam Clucas. We haven't seen him in a matchday squad for a while. Is he injured?
No, he's not. He's training really well. He's working hard every day. He's probably like all of them been with the rotation been left out for that. So he's ready for selection. He's just... we've got some really good midfielders in the building, and in the rotations, Hamo's been playing well, Tom Bayliss has been playing well. He's missed out, and I know he's got a really high profile around Lincoln and what he's done in the game, but at the minute he's not made the matchday squad.
Inevitably, though, that leads to speculation. There's some sort of clause in contracts that mean that if he plays too many games for you, he'll be able to sign a contract. Is that the situation? Is there a clause that you're aware of that you're trying to fight shy of?
Well, I'm aware of all the players' clauses. I'm aware of everybody's players' clauses, and Sam is no different. But that's something between Sam and the club, and that's something between all the other players in the club in terms of their contract details. I don't think it's fair for me to come in here and talk about contract details, whatever they'll be, because we've got lots of players that we're looking at for next season, whether that's options, whether they're out of contract, whether they're trigger new contracts. That's normal in football. But for me, that's between the players and the club. My job is to try and select a team and try and look at the football side of it ready for next season and the end of this season.
Just one final one on Sam. Is he somebody you'd like to have involved in the squad next season?
Yeah, I like Sam's abilities there, and I'd like most of the players in the group, if not all the players. But again, that sometimes there's other forces that are at play than what I want or what I need. Like anything in the situation, we know there's players out of contract that might leave us because they might be able to get bigger money somewhere else. That's football, and I have to be, not wary of that. I have to be mindful of that. But Sam's ability is unquestionable. He's been missing out due to selection because we've got some really good senior midfielders in that space at the moment.
Let's talk about one of those other midfielders, Ethan Aran. We saw a little bit of him on Saturday. You were talking afterwards and saying that not likely to start the game on Friday. Is that down to his fitness, or is that also down to protecting an asset? We're 4 games away from the end of the season. Realistically, if you want to do business in the summer, you may need to move players on, and Ethan potentially is a big asset for you.
Yeah, I think as a club, Ethan's always been, as a player, a top player for us. I think you only needed to see when he came on the pitch again with 30 minutes, you see his quality for sure. It's mainly because he needs to get fit and we don't want to risk him. Like wherever he's here next year or not next year, what we don't want is players to come back too much too soon and cause bigger injuries. We've had that a couple of times where you've seen players come back and then 2 games later they're out and they've gone again. You only have to look at, Bailey came back for 20 minutes and then he's out for the rest of the season. So, and that's not, we're just trying to lower the chances of that with Ethan and with all the players as always. That's why we can't spike him too much too soon in terms of minutes. But again, he's been training really well. He came onto the pitch and got minutes, and we'll look to see what are the right minutes for him now over the volume of a Friday, Monday, which is another added challenge of being a head coach. You have all these different things going on at the moment that I have to select a team for, and it's not as easy as just round pegs in round holes, because there's lots of decisions to be made in what's right for the individuals or what's right for the club.
Just follow up on one thing you said mainly. So does that just suggest that obviously fitness is a big part, but you also do have to have a mind for the summer as well?
In what sense, sorry?
In the sense of whether you don't want to risk a player that potentially could bring money into the club and help you with the market.
I think, I don't want to risk any player getting injured again, and it'd be the same if we were at the Christmas period. We'd still have to work his minutes back in like we worked Tom Hamer's minutes back in. If you remember when Tom Hamer came in, he didn't play straight away, and he's getting back. A bit like we've managed Lewis Monsma this year with 1 game a week. There's always different challenges physically, but no, first and foremost, it's making sure we look after Ethan physically, whether he's here or not here. Is the future of the club, like all the other players, but we definitely don't want to get him injured again.
You talked to us the last few weeks about giving other players opportunities to see what they have. Clearly, there's going to be that balance between doing that and obviously putting up a good challenge against 4 teams that are playing for big prizes. Yeah,
I think that's the biggest challenge at the moment for me, is because not losing the opportunity to see players. So you would have seen. Tom Hamer's done really well for us, but he was out the team to give Lewis a chance, and other players have been out the team, and other players have got injured like Jovan, so it gives other players an opportunity. For me, it's making sure the balance of being competitive on the pitch as much as possible, which I think we had enough to win the game on Saturday, for sure, and the players on the pitch. But like you say, the next 4 teams are going to be really tough because they've got something to play for. But we want to spoil the party as well. We don't want to just look at next year. And that's why I always say it's one eye on next season. It's not all eyes on next season, because if that was the case, you just treat it as it doesn't matter and you put players on the pitch that just want minutes. That's not the case here. I'm trying to learn all the time about what players will look like for us moving forward into next season. We've changed shape, which is clear for everybody to see. So we're still developing in that. We're still learning on that. And that was a decision with a view of next season a bit earlier than people realised, because we want to move the club forward in terms of how we want to do things. So we've changed shape in that way, and that affects everything. That can affect recruitment in the summer, that can affect who we want in the building in the summer, because the system and the shape's changed a little bit. So even though you're seeing the same players on the pitch, at times they're being asked to do slightly different things, and they're learning what we want from them. So there's lots of learning going on at the minute, because we just thought, I thought, and the coaching staff thought, when we weren't going to go up or down, we don't want to lose the opportunity to learn a lot, and playing against big teams like Wrexham and Stockport, and how we can cope with it in the way we want to do things. And there's some been really pleasing things, and we've developed in some really good ways. And then there's some of the areas that we want to keep looking at and making sure that we need to keep improving on. So even though we might not have got all the results we've wanted, there's actually some things that we've been doing really well in this moment.
I'm a bit hesitant about asking this, because I think Rob asked it and you suddenly had 2 or 3 new injuries, but is there any change in the injury situation? I'm a bit concerned.
Yeah, no, we're good at the minute. I think Conor McGrandle has just got like a tightness, but other than after the game, nothing, but he's back into training already, so we're good. Jack Moylan's back into full team training, which is excellent news. Like you say, Ethan's back building his minutes up, so at the minute we're pretty healthy. Obviously then Jove, who's got that hamstring, but that's again not risking him, because we don't need to try and force him back for like the last game of the season. It would be too risky. If we were in a playoff position, would we try and risk him for the last game of the season? Of course, maybe, but it doesn't seem worth it to do that one. And then the only one that probably weren't clear on is Dom Jeffries, because Dom Jeffries now is in his days off going in for his operation. He's got to have a couple of operations, so his season's finished. But again, we're trying to do that as quick as we can with the medical, the stuff we've got going on, to get him under the knife, so that he can be ready for as quick as he can for next season. So there's no real updates in new injuries. It's just probably the clarity on the older ones, if you like.
I can hear people shouting at me saying there is a game, Michael, so I better ask you about the match against Reading, and what a job the manager's done when you consider the amount of stories and things going on behind the scenes. Somehow to keep a team going forward when there's so much talk behind the scenes is some job. Yeah,
it's amazing. I know Noah, he's a great guy, and he was the 21s coach there before he's moved up, so it's maybe a similar pathway. So top guy, inherited a really good group as well. Like you say, I think I really hope the club finds a solution to the problem at the minute, because they're probably days off of being embargoed or kicked out of the league. No one wants to see that. Any club, none of us want to see a club go under. So hopefully they can, as a club, find a solution to the problem really quickly. But they're a good team, and I think they've really done really well with the group of players they've got as well. And even though they've sold some big players to Wrexham and moved some players on, they've kept a core of really talented players in that group. Even they sold Bindon to Forest, but kept him there. So they've done some really good work in January, and they're pushing really well. We thought we were good against them at home when they came to our place, but the job they've done to sustain it is something that is good, and something we wish we could have done. But we're looking forward to going there and like I said before, try and spoil the party a little bit.